G'day, welcome back to RC Model Reviews. I'm repairing the Wingnetic that had an unfortunate accident, and I've glued the various bits of foam back together. Now this bit's missing, as you can see, and it's kind of rough. First thing I did was plunge all the bits into boiling water, or very, very hot water. That kind of, with EPO, that will make it spring back a little bit like the shape it was before you damaged it. So the bits came back to a reasonably close facsimile of what they were, and I've hot glued it together. You can see it's reasonably straight. There's little holes here and there, bits missing, so that's life, I guess. Look, what I have found, of course, is because there's so little meat in the front of this thing, if I was just going to put a plywood former on the front here, it would just break off really, really easily. So what I'm going to have to do is build some extra strength. Now the original motor mount, of which this is a piece, sort of wrapped around the side. You can see the moulding on the side there where the original motor mount wrapped around to provide strength over those holes. Now I don't have another motor mount, although many people I see in various forums have said you should always get a spare motor mount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some plywood, very thin plywood. It's about 1.5 millimeters, 2 millimeters, and I'm going to actually create a new motor mount by curving a piece around the side here, and then I'm going to use thicker plywood for the motor mount here. So I'm going to basically have a front plate, and I'm going to have two sides that will curve around and hopefully produce pretty much the same effect as that original plastic mount. So it's going to be an interesting exercise in building, and I love repairing stuff. Honestly, I love repairing stuff. I've had so much experience, I guess, but repairing stuff is far more exciting, interesting and challenging for me than building a kit or putting an ARF together, because you've got to use your brain, you've got to come up with clever ideas to sometimes quite awkward problems. If you can't just buy a spare part, you've got to rebuild stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a piece of paper, I'm going to cut a template out here so that it fits nicely. Then I'm going to transfer it to the plywood. I'm going to soak the plywood in ammonia and water, because that makes it very soft and pliable, hence the name plywood. Yeah, I don't know. So then I'm going to strap it all in place, I'm going to put some glue on it, and hopefully it'll stay in the shape that I create. Then of course it'll be glued to the front of the model, and hopefully we'll get this thing flying. Woohoo! Let's go! And here's the paper form that I've ended up with. This, as you can probably see, will go on the side of the model like that, and it will curve around and fit the area where the original motor mount fitted. And I'll do two of these, one for each side. They probably won't match because of the damage. The model is not fully symmetrical now, but I'll cut two of them out of plywood if I can find some plywood big enough, and I'll then soak them in ammonia. Okay, here are the two pieces of plywood I cut. Notice I've gone a dark brown colour because I have soaked them in the ammonia, and it makes it much more flexible. So now I should be able to get these to curve around the nose, and I'm going to use a whole bunch of rubber bands to hold them in place. Now I could just glue straight away, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it together. This is my motor mount, my front plate. Put it together, put the rubber bands on, let it dry, and then I'll glue it, because otherwise I'd have to use a water-based glue, and I want to use an epoxy. I'm sorry to say that strategy was a complete and utter epic fail because the nose is tapered. The rubber bands all kept flying off the front. So what I'm going to do now is I've got my front motor mount cut out. I'm going to glue that to the front of the model like this, and then I'm going to put the sides on. Now because these are damp, I've actually put them in a plastic bag so they won't dry out and become stiff again. And I'm going to use CA. I'm going to glue this on here. I'm going to use CA then to tack the plywood sides around the edge of this firewall, and hopefully that will work. Now of course I'm only going to lightly tack this firewall to the model because I want to then pull the whole damn thing off and slather it all in glue and push it back on again, so it's a really good fit. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a challenge getting just the right combination of glue here so that it'll stay on but it won't rip the whole thing apart when I try and take it off later. It's going to be a bit of a trick, but I like the challenge. I like the challenge. Now while I'm talking about it, just a little heads up tip for those of you who have old bottles of epoxy like this. I went and got these, and this one was rock solid, and this one was all kind of really thick and gooey. And I thought, what shall I do? Well, what you can do is that the hardener, I think it's the hardener, it's a resin hardener, anyway, the clear one will often crystallize. What that means is it just basically forms a solid. Hasn't gone off, it's just crystallized. And so what you can do is heat it up, and it will then go back into a liquid form. And same goes with this, the viscosity will drop down if you heat it. So what I initially did was drop it into a cup of hot water, I boiled from the jug, but I thought quicker, I stuck it in my Turnigy microwave oven on 2.4 gigs for 30 seconds, and now it's all nice and runny again. Look, you can see this is all, no longer is it a solid lump of epoxy, and this has also got a bit runnier, a bit of viscosity change there too. So now I can use these again. I've just done a test piece here just to make sure that it's going to go off. I did this about 5 minutes ago and it's already getting pretty stiff. So yeah, that's a work, that's a success. So yeah, again, if your epoxy looks like it's gone all crusty, bung it in the microwave for a little bit, just enough to get it warm, and who knows, it may come back to life like mine did. Righto, this is as far as we have got. We have glued this former onto the front of the craft, like so. Actually, I tried to use only a tiny amount of glue, but as you can see, more glue came through, so this isn't going to come off again. We're going to have to put the sides on with this former in place, and I'm going to use a combination of epoxy and CA. Now I do this quite a lot when I'm building. Because CA kicks off so quickly, what you can do is you can actually use, I'm going to use epoxy around here where these sides actually go on. You get lots of epoxy on there, but I'm going to use CA around the edges to hold it in place, because the CA will kick off as soon as I spray kicker on it, and that gives what holds everything in place while the epoxy finally cures inside. So I'm going to give that a go now. Wonder if it'll work. We'll find out. Right, there you go. You can see how that has, I've CA'd it to the front former and then rolled it round, and also CA'd it right at the back here, so that's going to hold everything together while the epoxy cures. And I've only done one side to start with because it's a bit of a handful, but you can see we're starting to get the shape back into the nose, and this should make it much stronger than just gluing a firewall on the front. I haven't made any holes in this for cooling, but I may do that later if I need to. I don't know that I will. We might put a hole underneath instead. So we'll just let that epoxy kick off, and we'll come back later and do the other side. Okay, while I'm here, I've got a bit of a problem. How do you store a whole lot of different models? Now you can see I've been hanging them from the tail here. I've made rope loops and put screws into the top of this wall, and I hang them down, but really you can't really fit many models on a wall, I'm afraid. It's pretty minimal, and if you go down here I've got a couple more. So I'm looking for a really convenient, simple, easy way to store models so I can get easy access to them, and so that they can be kept out of harm's way. So any ideas you might have? Now you can have a look up here. You can see that I have also hung nitro models from the props, which works out pretty well. But again, especially with a building like this, when you do that you lose so much space down here because they sort of hang out so far. So if you guys have got some good ideas, remembering there's all sorts of models here, big, small, ones that the wings can come off, ones that the wings can't come off. If you would like to come up with some ideas, please tell me. Please tell me for this Fixed Wing Friday. I need help. Okay, so there we go. I've done both sides now. As you can see, we've got a nice plywood thing around there, nice plywood thing around there. The motor mount in the middle. It's not too asymmetrical, I don't think. Obviously, everything's not perfect, but I'm not too worried about that. If it flies, I'll give it a coat of paint, and we'll see how it turns out. But I think this is probably going to be even stronger than the original, which is always good. So this is a two-part Fixed Wing Friday, the repair, and hopefully tomorrow, which is actually Saturday here but still Friday in most of the world, I will fly this again, and I think I know what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to give it a couple of clicks of up trim so that when I take my thumb off the stick, hopefully it won't dive into the ground and do the same thing all over again. So I'm determined to make this Wingnetic fly. I'm sure, basically it looks pretty sound from an aerodynamic point of view, so let's see what happens. And I'm taking bets now. If you'd like to put your opinion of what will happen tomorrow when I re-maiden this, please do so in the comments. I'll be more than happy to hear them, and we'll compare it to reality. And this time I'll make sure my hat cam's going, because that's kind of important really. You don't want to miss the crashes, do you? So there you go. I've got questions, comments, put them in the usual place. This build table, as I said, is going to get a lot of work, and so stay tuned. There will be a lot of fixed wing stuff. The plane I was actually hoping to review today didn't arrive. I got a call from the courier saying, oh, we can't deliver it till Monday, which is a real pain in the backside, because I'd really hoped to get it on the bench and built up today, because it's a pretty quick and easy build. But never mind, I shall be not building too much on the weekend because the weather's good. Hopefully getting some flying done, and you'll see the benefits of that in some more flight reviews coming up soon on RC Model Reviews. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Questions, comments in the usual place. Now it's time for me to actually go home and have some dinner and render up this video. Bye for now.